This is the part 2 video of making Crochet Lord Ganesha. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to DIY Crafts. In continuation with the previous video, we are going to now start with the hands part. So I am going to begin with the magic ring. And here I am using the same 100% cotton 4-ply yarn and a 2.5 mm crochet hook. So first begin with the magic ring. And let's start making the first row with 6 single crochet stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Once all the 6 single stitches are done, pull the starting tail end and close the magic ring. Now let us start making the second row. So put the needle into the top 2 loops of the first stitch and make a single crochet. So in second row we have to make 1 single stitch in each and every stitch. So mark the beginning of each and every row. Here I have put the stitch marker in the first stitch. Now I am going to continue to make 1 single stitch in each and every stitch. So while making this row, your project will tend to curl up towards the inside, and it is important for us to put the correct side of the project onto the outside. So once you are done with the second row, I will show that to you how the project turns to the inside. So as you see, now the project is turning towards the inside. Now it is important for us to turn it and pinch it to the outside so that the correct side of the stitches will be visible from the outside. So this is how you maintain the correct side of the project. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the third row. So for row 3 until row 5, we'll have 1 single crochet in each and every stitch. So put the stitch marker and continue to make single stitches until row 5. Here I am making the last single stitch of the 5th row. And now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 6th row. So for the row 6, it is important, please check. So instead of putting the needle into both the loops, we have to put the needle only into the front loop and then follow the pattern. So begin with 1 single stitch and put the stitch marker back into the first stitch, and this marks the beginning of 6th row. Now again put the needle into the front loop of the next stitch and then make an increase. So the pattern for this row is 1 stitch and 1 increase, but it is advised to put the needle only into the front loop for the 6th row. Only for the 6th row. So this is the second repetition, that's 1 single stitch, and into the next stitch put the needle into only the front loop and make an increase. That's the second repetition. And now we'll have 2 more stitches. Do the last third repetition, 1 single stitch and then 1 increase, and all these stitches will be worked only into the front loops, leaving the back loops. So why we did this? Because it will give you a nice flexibility to the front part of the project. So we can shape it however we like according to our requirement. Now whatever tail end we have, we are just have to poke that extra tail end into the project so that it doesn't interfere with our work. Here I am using a small crochet hook to poke that excess thread into the project. So once the 6th row is done, let's start with the 7th row. Remove the stitch marker. Make 1 single crochet into the first stitch and then put the stitch marker back into this new stitch to mark the beginning of 7th row. Now from row 7 to row 15, we have to make 1 single stitch in each and every stitch. And as we don't have any kind of increases in all these rows, we will have the stitch count remains the same, like we'll have 9 stitches in each and every row from row 7 till row 15. As the project height keep on increasing, it will be difficult for us to add stuffing. So I'm stopping in the middle, where after completing row 10, I'm just taking a small portion of Fiberfill and using the bigger hook, I'm just stuffing this polyester filling into the project, and then I will continue until the row 15 and I will stuff it again with some more Fiberfill, so that this ensures that all the arm is equally and nicely stuffed instead of blobbing it at one place. And after stuffing it, we can just continue until row 15 with one single stitch in each and every stitch. And once it is done, we can fasten off by making a slip stitch into the next stitch, and then trim the excess thread. Chain one and trim the excess thread by leaving a long tail end. And this tail end, we are going to use this to attach it to the body of the project. So fasten off, and now take another small amount of Fiberfill and stuff the project. The parts of this project have to be gently stuffed. You shouldn't stuff it so tight like you do for the head and the body. The hands and legs should be stuffed very lightly, just to hold the shape. That's it, not too much. And now make another hand using the same pattern. So because of making the 6th row with only front loops, we can just fold the front part as shown in the video, so we can shape it however you like it. And now to add the detailing for the hands, I am using a metallic thread and a 1 mm crochet hook. This part is completely optional. If you wish to decorate your Ganesh using some other artificial beads and all, you can happily do that, but this one is an alternative who is looking out to make something completely out of thread. So this metallic thread, I am just making a foundation chain of chain 10 or however many chains it takes to wrap the wrist around the row 6 of the project. And once I have made enough chains, then trim the excess thread, like fasten off, and now attach it to the project at row 6. Just make a couple of knots to secure it in its place, but if you are not sure, if you want to secure it even more nicely, you can use a glue to fix it at this position. And now for this excess threads, I am just using a tapestry needle and hiding these tail ends right into the stuffing. And if you feel the excess threads coming out on the top, you can just trim them using the cutter. And that's it. You can repeat the same thing on the other hand as well. And once the hands are done, you can just put them aside, and let's continue by making the legs for the project. Again, I am using the same cream color yarn. Begin with a magic ring. And now let's start making the first row with 6 single crochet stitches in the center. Just chain 1 and then 6 single stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now pull the starting tail end and close the magic ring. Now put the needle onto the top of the the first stitch and then make a single stitch. Now put the stitch marker in this new stitch to mark the beginning of second row. From row 2 to row 4, we have to make 1 single crochet in each and every stitch. Just remember, just like in the hands, you have to twist the work outside so that the correct side of the stitches are facing on the outside. Now the row 4 is completed. Here we are going to change the color. So whatever color you are interested, the secondary color, you can take the red, green, purple or anything. So here I am using the green color yarn. Change the color and let's start making the 5th row. So for the row 5, insert the needle into the next stitch and begin with 1 single crochet. Now put the stitch marker in this new stitch to mark the beginning of the 5th row. So that's 1 single stitch, and then in the next stitch make 1 increase. That is 2 single stitches into the same stitch. So that's 1 and 2, and we are going to repeat this total 3 times in this row. So already first repetition is completed. Now we are doing the second repetition. So carefully manage the tail ends on the back side. We will have 2 tail ends. One is the cream color one and the another one is the starting thread of the green color yarn. So we have to carefully put them back side and then continue with the pattern. So we are doing the last 3rd repetition here. So that's 1 single stitch and then 1 increase in the next stitch. So this completes the 5th row with 9 single crochet stitches. So once this row is completed, you can trim and cut down the excess threads, and all these threads you can just leave it like that, but if you are getting disturbed with these all tail ends, you can just push them into the leg part by using a crochet hook and all. So you can just wrap them like that and then use the back side of a crochet hook and poke the threads into the project so that it won't interfere with your work in the later rows. Now let's continue with the pattern. We are going to begin with row 6. So adjust the loop and let's start making the 6th row. I have already taken out the stitch marker. Begin with one single stitch. Now put the stitch marker into the first stitch to mark the beginning of the 6th row. Now continue to make one single stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row from row 6 to row 8, which means from row 6 to row 8 you will have 9 single stitches in each and every row. So this is how the project looks like after completing the 8 rows. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 9th row. So first begin with one single stitch and then put the stitch marker into this new stitch, and this marks the beginning of 9th row. And in the 9th row we have 2 single stitches, so make one more single stitch. So that's 2 single stitches, and then into the next stitch make an increase. That's the pattern for the 9th row. 2 stitches and increase, we have to repeat it 2 more times, and by the end of the 9th row you will have 12 single stitches. Now here we are going to begin with row 10. So begin with one single stitch and then put the stitch marker back, and from row 10 to row 12 continue to make one single stitch in each and every stitch throughout the rows. So in row 10 to row 12 also you will have 12 single stitches in each and every row. Now all the 12 rows are completed. Remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 13th row. Can you see the shape of the leg? It's slightly taking the shape of a cone. Now row 13, begin with one single stitch and then put the stitch marker back into this new stitch, and then make 2 more single crochet stitches. So total we will have 3 single stitches in the 13th row, and into the next stitch we have to make one increase, that is 2 single stitches into the same stitch. So 3 stitch increase and repeat it 2 more times until you reach the starting point. So here I am making the last increase of the 13th row, and now you will have 15 single crochet stitches. Remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 14th row. Begin with one single stitch. Now put the stitch marker back, and from row 14 to row 16 we have to make one single stitch in each and every stitch in every row. So you will have 15 single crochet stitches in all these 3 rows. So once the 16th row is completed, remove the stitch marker, make a slip stitch into the next stitch, chain 1, and then trim the excess thread by leaving a long tail end. And now we are going to add stuffing into the project. Take a very little amount of fiberfill and stuff the leg so that it will just hold the shape instead of stuffing it completely. It has to be little flexible. And once the stuffing is done, just like we have added a bracelet like the metallic finishing to the hands, I'm going to add the anklet part onto the legs at around row 4 and row 5. So here also I have done chain 10, and then I've secured it by making a couple of knots, and then I have hit the tail ends using the tapestry needle. So once everything is assembled, again you can secure it by adding a little bit of glue as well. So once it is done, repeat the same pattern for making the second leg as well. And once the legs are done, put them aside and let's start making the main body of our project. Here I am using the second color, which I have used the same one for the legs. So begin with the green color yarn, make a magic ring, and let's start making the first row. Chain 1. Now for the first row, make 6 single crochet stitches into the center. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now pull the starting tail end and close the magic ring. Now for the second row we have to make increases. So put the needle onto the top of the first stitch. I think I've made it so tight. So just poke the needle in there and just make an increase. Make 2 single stitches into the same stitch. So that's the first stitch. Put the stitch marker once you are done with both the stitches. So to mark the beginning of the second row. It's very important to keep a count on whatever row you are working and whatever stitch you are doing. So it's important to put the stitch marker. So that's the second increase, and continue to make increases throughout the row until you reach the starting point. So by the end of the second row, you will have 12 single stitches. So now second row is completed. Remove the stitch marker and let's start making the third row. Begin with one single stitch. Now put the stitch marker back into this new stitch and then into the next stitch make an increase, that is 2 single stitches into the same stitch. So that's one stitch and one more stitch in the same stitch. Now we are going to repeat this pattern of one single stitch and increase throughout the row. So this is the second repetition, that's one single stitch and then one increase, that's the second repetition. Now continue it until you have a total of 6 repetitions. So by the end of the third row, you will have 18 single crochet stitches, and this completes the third row. Remove the stitch marker and let's start making the fourth row. Begin with one single stitch and then put the stitch marker back, and then in the next stitch make one more single stitch. We have 2 single stitches now, and then in the next stitch make one increase, that is 2 single stitches in the same stitch. Now for this row you have to repeat 2 single stitch and increase in total of 6 repetitions. So we have already done the first repetition, this is the second one, that's 2 single stitch and then one increase, and repeat this throughout the row until you reach the starting point of fourth row. Now fourth row is completed. Let's start making the fifth row. Make one single stitch. So by the end of the fourth row you will have 24 single stitches. Forgot to mention the count. So remove the stitch marker and let's start making the fifth row. One single stitch, put the stitch marker back. Make 2 more single stitches. So we have to make 3 single stitch in total. So that's one, and now this one is the second single stitch and then the third one. Into the next stitch make an increase, that is 2 single stitches into the same stitch. And now repeat this pattern of 3 single stitch increase throughout the row. So this is the second repetition. So 1, 2 and 3, and in the next stitch make an increase, and repeat this pattern throughout the row for total of 6 times. Now here I am making the last increase of fifth row, so you will have 30 single stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making row 6. Make one single stitch, put the stitch marker back. Now continue to make one single stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row until you reach the starting point, and we have to do the same thing from row 6 to row 10, all in the green color only. So once you are done with all the 10 rows, you will have 30 stitches in each and every row until row 10. So here we have to change the color. So to change the color, pull that loop up. Now put the needle back into both the loops. Now take a body color, the cream color which we have used. And now let's continue with the pattern. This completed the 10th row. Remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 11th row. So from row 11 to row 16 we have one single stitch in each stitch but with a different color. So change the color, and to mark this new row, the row 11, we have to put the stitch marker back into this new stitch. So whatever color difference here you are observing, we can manage that by putting the color change onto the back side of the project, which can be hardly noticeable. So from row 11 to row 16 we will make one single stitch in each and every stitch for every row. So you will have 30 single stitches in all these rows until row 16. Once we have done up to the 16 rows, this is how the project looks like. See the color change. Now we will go ahead and continue making the decrease rows. So remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 17th row. Begin with one single stitch and then put the stitch marker back. So we have total 3 single stitches, so that's one single stitch, and then in the next one we have the second single stitch and then the third single stitch. So once 3 stitches are done, we have to make an invisible decrease. So put your needle into the front loop of the first stitch and then into the front loop of the next stitch. Now drop a loop and make a single crochet. That's an invisible decrease. 3 stitches and 1 decrease, and this is the pattern. You have to repeat it throughout the row. So 1, 2, 3, and then make an invisible decrease. This is the second repetition, and we have to repeat this pattern throughout the row for total of 6 times. So repeat it 4 more times until you reach the starting point. And by the end of row 17, you will have 24 single crochet stitches. Here making the last single crochet decrease. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 18th row. Begin with 1 single stitch and then put the stitch marker back. And this marks the beginning of 18th row. Make 1 more single stitch in the next stitch, so that's 2 single crochet stitches. And now we have to join the next 2 stitches using a decrease. That's an invisible decrease. So for 18th row, 2 single stitch and decrease is the pattern which we have to repeat it. So that's the second repetition. 1 single stitch, second single stitch, and then 1 decrease. And repeat it 4 more times throughout the row until you reach the starting point. And by the end of the 18th row, we will have 18 single stitches. Here I am making the last invisible decrease, and this completes the 18th row. Remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 19th row. Begin with 1 single stitch and put the stitch marker back, and this marks the beginning of the 19th row. And now make an invisible decrease. And now repeat this pattern of 1 single stitch and 1 decrease throughout the row. So that's 1 single stitch and then 1 decrease. And repeat it throughout the row until you reach the starting point. And this completes the 19th row with 12 single crochet stitches. Here I am making the last invisible decrease of 19th row. So once it is done, remove the stitch marker. Make 1 single stitch, make the last slip stitch, chain 1 and then trim the excess thread. You can just leave a small tail end because you already have a long tail end for the head, and we are going to use that thread. Here it's a small thread, it's good enough. So this completed the body part. Take the Fiberfill and stuff it properly, firmly. Once the stuffing is done, the color change part will be on the back side, and if you observe, the Ganesh will have a snake kind of thing around the waist. So for that detailing, I am just using a metallic thread. I am just making a foundation chain of the required length, and somewhere in the middle I am using a chain 4 picot stitch, and I am planning to make it to be visible onto the right side of the Ganesh belly. So just identify the position, make the simple mind calculation like how many chains would it be required, and then secure it on the back side. So once I randomly measured the length of the chain, here I am making a chain 4 picot, just a slip stitch after leaving the 4 chains from the hook, and you can shape it as the shape of a snake. And then again for the rest of the chain, I am just making the foundation chain and then securing it with making a knot on the back side of the project. So if you observe, here I am using a pearl head pin to fix the position of the part where I wanted the exact position of the snake part, the chain 4 part. And now with the remaining threads, take the threads onto the back side and secure by making a couple of knots. And also I am just securing the entire chain using a fabric glue because I don't want to take any chance like moving it up and forth. So I am just using the glue, and all the tail ends I am just stuffing it into the stuffing and just hide the extra tail ends into the stuffing. So once you secure the chain with fabric glue, pin it and leave it to dry completely before you do the rest of the work on your project. And once it's done, put this aside and then let's start making the necklace for a Ganesh. So again I'm just using the same metallic color yarn and a 1 mm crochet hook. Begin with a slip knot. So the main part which I am showing it to you comes to the front part of the Ganesh, and for the remaining thread on the back side I am just using the foundation chain. So the main center part of the necklace will have 21 chains. I am just leaving a long tail end at the starting and then make chain 21. I forgot to give the count, but it's chain 21, and then make one more chain for the height chain, and we are going to ignore that chain as a count. So that's the height chain. Now into the first chain make one single stitch, and in the next one make one more single stitch. So that's 2 single crochet. That's 1 and then 2. Now in the next 2 stitches we have to make half double crochet. So that's first half double crochet, yarn over, and into the next stitch make one more half double stitch. So we are done with 4 stitches. Now into the next 4 stitches make 1 DC in each and every stitch. So that's one double stitch, then the second double crochet, that's the second DC, yarn over, into the next stitch make the third DC, yarn over, and into the next chain make the fourth DC. Now comes the center part of the necklace. So you can see the nice increasing shape of the necklace. Now into the next one make 1 triple stitch, and then one more triple stitch in the next stitch. So that's 2 triple stitches. And into the next one we have to make an increase. So yarn over 2 times. This will give the center portion of the necklace. So that's 1 triple stitch, and into the same stitch make one more triple stitch. So yarn over 2 times and make one more triple crochet into the same stitch. Then you can make a chain 2 or chain 3 picot. Here I am just doing a chain 2 picot. So picot is nothing but making a slip stitch onto the top of the latest triple stitch, the last triple stitch. And now yarn over twice and make one more triple crochet into the same stitch. So we have 2 triple stitch, chain 2 picot, and 1 triple stitch all in the same chain. So that's the center part of the necklace, and now we are going to reciprocate the pattern on the first side. So we have to begin with 2 triple crochet stitches. That's the first one. Then into the next one make another triple crochet. That's the second triple stitch. Now make 4 double crochet stitches. So yarn over, that's the first DC, again yarn over, into the next chain make another DC, that's the second one, and then the third DC and the fourth DC. So you will have 4 more chains remaining. We'll do 2 half double crochet and then 2 single crochet. So that's the first half double stitch, and make one more half double stitch into the next stitch. Then you will have 2 more chains remaining. Make the last 2 single crochet stitches. So this is the front part of the necklace that will go on to the body part. So to secure this onto the back side, I am just making a chain to attach it onto the first single crochet of this first row. So I am just making a continuous chain. So this chain actually depends on the size of a body we have made, and it's not completely sure like we need only these many chains. So to take the chance, what I'm doing is I'm just making a few good enough chains, and then I'm taking some extra thread just in case if we need to make some extra chains or something like that. We'll just make it with the extra thread which we have attached it and then we are going to finish it after assembling the project. So if you observe, I have taken some random count. I did not take any particular chain count here, and after making few chains, like when we think that these kind of chains will be good enough, but don't just trust it, secure your work so that it will be safe without losing the chains. And now I'm just taking some extra thread just to be sure. If we need to make some more extra chains, we can make it, and then put this aside. So this completes the necklace part. Now let us make the laddu part. So here I am using the same yellow color yarn which I have used for crown. Begin with a slip knot, then make chain 3. So we are going to use a puff stitch. Yarn over, insert the needle into the first chain. Now drop a loop until the height of chain 2. Again yarn over and drop another loop from the first chain until the height of chain 2, and repeat this process like 3 to 4 times, or how many ever times you wanted to make the bouncier the laddu. Repeat it like couple of times, and then here I have done it 4 times. Once it is done, having all the loops on the needle, yarn over and bring this loop out of all the loops on the hook, and then make chain 1. Now trim the excess thread. You can just leave like 4 to 5 inches, that's good enough. And to give the shape of the laddu, I am just using both the starting and ending tail ends, and I am going to knot them together, and this will give the shape of a laddu. If you want to try some other different pattern for laddu, you can try it by making modak or something like that. So secure it with a couple of knots, and this will give the laddu that will go onto the left hand of the Ganesh, like this. Now I wanted to make another small laddu that will go onto the trunk of the Ganesh. So for that, again I am taking the same yellow yarn and just 10 to 12 inches of thread, and just making a couple of knots, just wrapping the yarn for 8 to 9 times, or how many ever times you wanted to wrap it. And once it is done like 6 to 7 times, just take both the tail ends and slowly make the knot, and this will give you a small bobble knot in the middle. And again make one more knot to join both the ends. That will give you a nice shape of a laddu, and I am going to attach this at the end of a Ganesh trunk. That will give you the illusion of small laddu portion in his trunk. Isn't this cute? So now for this part of the video, we have completed making the body, hands, legs, jewelry and laddu. So in the next part, I am going to show you how to assemble and do the finishings. The written pattern for this project is given in the description. Do check it out. Stay tuned and see you all in the next video.
Thank you for watching. Please like the video, share it and subscribe to DIY Crafts.